You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. Karate Kid. Hey people, my name's Jim and you have landed on Planet Rewind, and the atmosphere is full of nostalgic movie reviews, ranking videos, discussions, all that nostalgic movie stuff. If you want to talk about nostalgia and movies, please consider subscribing and we can reminisce together. Kid moves to new city, meets old man karate master who helps him defend self against bullies and gain confidence. Simple as that. And it actually spanned 5 movies. There is 5 Karate Kid movies. 5 Karate Kid movies? Can you believe it? How did they stretch this out to 5 films? Let me know if you've seen the Karate Kid series. Let me know your thoughts on the movies in the comments down below and your ranking. And we are starting off with last place, which is The Next Karate Kid. This movie came out in 1994 when Ralph Macchio was a man who had left the series. He was too old for the series, so they had to recast. And it's just basically Hilary Swank in her debut role comes in, and it's just basically the same story but with a female. And it just feels bland and forced and a bit boring and lifeless of a movie. It kind of feels quite artificial. Kind of feels like this is just them trying to carry it on. You're never going to meet the chemistry between Ralph Macchio's Daniel and Pat Morita's Mr. Miyagi. It's lightning in a bottle, you know, and you're not going to get it with Hilary Swank in her first role, bless her, because she's pretty good in this, to be honest. And Pat Morita as Mr. Miyagi still is brilliant, but you can't capture that. And I think that's what's missing, that real earnest relationship. They try, they really, really try, but Next Karate Kid, it was just a case of, we've still got this Karate Kid name, Ralph Macchio. He's old now, he don't want to do it. We've got to do it though, so get Hilary Swank. Come over here, love, and just star in this movie. The movie does try and actually tailor itself towards the female experience, which I like. It's not just Hilary Swank is replacing Ralph Macchio and it's the same movie entirely. Essentially it's the same movie, but there is kind of a cause for a female point of view and a depiction of the female experience, so I did appreciate that watching it. Essentially the acting isn't the problem, it's just a generic, forced, bland, boring movie with not much fight scenes, not much memorable scenes. It's just Next Karate Kid. It's not a film I hate, it's just not one I find very entertaining. Next up is The Karate Kid Part 3. This movie is Karate Kid 3 is harmless. It's of course got Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita still in that really, really earnest relationship they have, but it's just boring, it's forced, it's a rehash of The Karate Kid Part 1. In this one, Mr. Miyagi and Daniel fall out. Can you believe it? The best of friends, they fall out. That could have been a really good idea. That could have been something that could justify Karate Kid Part 3, to have that kind of, because they've never fallen out before, you know, to have the combination of the series be them falling out, you know, and repairing that relationship. But it just feels really weird. Like, Mr. Miyagi makes a few weird decisions towards Daniel which don't make sense for Mr. Miyagi's character. It feels like he's been needlessly annoying to Daniel when he wouldn't be doing this after all they've been through. And then Ralph Macchio is stuck trying to convey this emotion of being annoyed at Mr. Miyagi, and it's like he's trying, but it's like you don't believe any of it. So this whole idea of them falling out could have been really good, but it's just not believable. It's not written well. The villains in this movie are bloody nutcases. Now, this does give the movie somewhat of a memorable edge because the villains are absolutely bonkers. There are villains returning from Karate Kid Part 1, so it tries to tie things back. Karate Kid 2, I'm going to talk about in a minute obviously, is more ambitious, it's more original, it's not just a rehash of Part 1. This one tries to wrap things up in a nice bow and link things back to Part 1, but it just feels like a worse version of Part 1. Really, the villains are really the only memorable thing about this movie, but they are really, really good, they are funny. Basically, when he falls out with Mr. Miyagi, this person who knows the leader of Cobra Kai and is which is the evil kind of fighting organisation that Daniel fights in the first one. They send this guy to train Daniel to try and get him to lose his focus, and the sessions that Daniel has with this new trainer are absolutely priceless, because he's an absolute maniac, and I don't know how Daniel didn't just run for the bloody door after the first session. Daniel also has a third girlfriend in this. He had one girlfriend in the first one. Second one, he goes to Japan and gets a girlfriend. This third one, he's got another new girlfriend. Just Ralph Macchio, man. The coolest youngster. What a suave operator he was. But the girlfriend isn't as good as the lady friends in the first two. She's not that good. She's kind of boring. They literally have in this movie the same ending scene as the Karate Kid. It's quite literally the same. And it's almost like they think, well, you know, you're going to care about it again because we've seen a longer journey, but it just doesn't have that earnest sparkle, and it really feels like an imitation. It just does. It just does, and it's just, even the director of Karate Kid 3 has said that he just wasn't being original enough. He was just rehashing things, and he does, and sadly. But ultimately, I don't think it's a bad movie. I can sit there and watch it, but it's kind of an annoying movie because it could have been a better combination. How about this? This is a lead-in to where I talk about part 2 later in this video. It's not as earnest and innocent as part 1, and it's not as ambitious and original as part 2. There you go. And at number 3 is the Karate Kid remake. I can't believe you're placing this as number 3. Jimmy, how can you place this over the Karate Kid Part 3? You know what? The Karate Kid remake is one of the better remakes. Now, remakes are out of control. I can see why people like me who are fans of 80s and 90s movies, I get offended whenever the idea of a remake comes up. But then you get ones like this where they actually do deliver in some way. Like, I was looking up whilst thinking about this movie in preparation for this and watching this movie, I was looking at reactions to it, and this movie has actually captivated young people. You know, this movie was popular. People liked this movie. Most of these remakes that come out, people were just like, like just groan and moan. But there's lots of positivity thrown at this movie. There's lots of young people who enjoyed this movie, and you know, how can I complain with that? You know, it shows that it did actually do its job. Many youngsters got a great experience with this movie. I'd rather they got it from the first one, obviously, but I respect this movie for resonating with people, because it easily could not have. It could have just been one of these new remakes with fart jokes and stupid jokes and social media jokes and all that, but it doesn't. No, it sticks to the core fundamentals and it delivers, I think. I like this remake. Jackie Chan is amazing here. It's not an attempt to make him into a new Mr. Miyagi. He's his own person in the role, but Jackie Chan's always great, you know, the martial arts of course, but in this, he's very serious, very reserved, very calm, and very, very good, and the relationship between him and the young kid, who is now played by Jaden Smith, the man who said on Twitter, something like, what was that? Something like, if mirrors exist, how do our eyes see? Something like that. He was high as shit. But Jaden Smith is a little kid here, and you know what? I fall under his spell. He's not very good in any other movie. After Earth, for example, but Jaden Smith's okay in this. Kind of fall under a spell. This is more of a kid's film. While the first Karate Kid stars a teenager, it's very much about teenage coming of age. This is very much a film for children, about children gaining confidence in themselves, children learning self-esteem, and you know, that gives it a unique edge and a positive edge. That's a good thing. It's earnest, it's believable, it has some decent fights, it's meaningful, it's nowhere near as good, but it's probably the best it could have turned out. And that's how I always look at modern remakes. Now, I wish it was actually called The Kung Fu Kid, because it's actually set in China, and Kung Fu Kid was the original title, but then they decided to go for Karate Kid. If they had called it Kung Fu Kid, I would probably be singing the praises of this movie completely, because it would stand out enough. But no, they decided to do it. They decided to call it The Karate Kid, just to get that cha-ching. Now we're into the top 2. Believe it or not, it's The Karate Kid Part 2. I love this movie. I was not the thing is, with the Karate Kid series, I was expecting all the sequels to be bad and all the other movies to be bad, and even Karate Kid 3, I don't hate it, but Karate Kid 2, I almost like it as much as the first movie. I think it's fantastic. I think it's underrated as all hell, and you should all go out and watch Karate Kid Part 2. So Mr. Miyagi's father is dying, so Miyagi decides he's going to travel back to Japan, and he takes Daniel with him. So he's going to visit his father in his last days, and he also meets an old foe there who he once wronged, who wants to fight him to the death. He's like, "You wronged me, Miyagi. You're going to die, mate." So they're going to have a fight to the death. So Daniel goes with him, and it gives it this new setting. So it's now set in Okinawa, Japan. New setting, new things to look at. Again, this sequel had ambition. This sequel decided to take what the first film did and not just rehash it, but give you this new setting, this new characters and all this but the same style, the same vibe as the first film, and that's what a great sequel should do. It's more about Mr. Miyagi, which is a great idea. Even though it's called Karate Kid, it's still very much about Daniel, but it's very much about Miyagi in this, and I like that. And I like how there is some more serious elements in this. There's ideas of fierce betrayal, this old friend of Miyagi holds against him. It's a film about forgiveness and friendship and betrayal, and very visceral film at times. There is some real hatred and underlying rivalry and tension between Miyagi and his old friend. Miyagi also meets his old flame, so it's nice to see Mr. Miyagi, you old dog, sitting there, charming her. Miyagi hadn't lost it yet, he's still got it. There are some wonderful acting scenes in this between Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita. They still have that brilliant friendship. But I like how this movie, again, I keep going back to it. Karate Kid 3 did try and rehash, and it almost felt like Miyagi and Daniel hadn't been on a journey. They just wanted to recreate and just try and make them go down that getting to know each other path again in number 3. But in Karate Kid 2, no, they fully know each other. They're now best friends. You don't have to go down it. It's not a coming of age movie anymore. Daniel knows what he knows. Daniel is now secure in himself. He's learnt that because of Miyagi, and it's about them being friends. And Daniel's able to help Miyagi through his grief over his father's condition. Obviously, Daniel meets another girl in this. And while I like Elizabeth Shue in the original, which we'll talk about, I really like the female he meets in this. I really like her. I thought she was a sweet actress and a sweet character. It was just great to see Miyagi and Daniel again. It feels like the stakes have really raised in this one, and it feels like more is on the line. They've got to a place they've got now, but now they're on a new adventure, and there's more stakes. Miyagi has to go back to his past, confront his past. Daniel has to maintain his teachings and stand up for his friend Miyagi. It really is a continuation of The Karate Kid, and they should have done this in part 3. They should have just carried on and built on this. And number 1, it is of course The Karate Kid. You're the best around, no one's gonna ever keep you down. Sorry. Basically, all the movies I've just discussed, anything good I've discussed about those movies is delivered here in abundance. It's a well-written, entertaining, earnest and iconic piece of work. Obviously, this is the beginning of Daniel's relationship with Mr. Miyagi. So Daniel comes to a new city. He's a streetwise, cool kid, extremely likeable. I can't believe how likeable Ralph Macchio is in this. And he's cool. And what I like about this is he comes to a new city. He's a cool kid, but he starts getting bullied. And I like how this movie kind of breaks convention. It has a cool kid getting bullied. You don't get much cooler than Ralph Macchio in the 80s. And he's getting bullied. Bless him. So he goes to obviously see Mr. Miyagi, and just the beginning, that real organic friendship that forms between Mr. Miyagi and Daniel, and the way that we don't know anything about Miyagi yet. So he's this strange old man with his strange old ways, but the way he delivers Daniel's karate training, he eases him into it. Obviously, we have that amazing scene which everyone knows about, wax on, wax off, where he teaches him karate techniques by washing the car and doing painting and this and that. So he confuses Daniel at the start, but Daniel eventually really learns to cherish his relationship with Miyagi and everything Miyagi teaches him. What I like in this film, Elizabeth Shue is the girl that Ralph Macchio is trying to woo, and she still likes him. Now, I like how this movie went this route. You could easily have this movie the girl only likes him once he stood up for himself. The girl only, for example, in Back to the Future, the girl only likes him once he's stood up for himself, once he's had a fight, which is a bit of a strange message in Back to the Future. But in this one, Elizabeth Shue's character, she likes him all the way through. She sees him get beaten up, she sees him get bullied, she sees all this, and she still likes him all the way through, and that's refreshing to me. I really like that. It gave me a positive feeling. It was not about he had to fight to become popular. No, Ralph Macchio is cool as fuck. He's cool as fuck. He's so likeable. So she went, you know what, he's getting bullied, but I'm going to carry on liking him. And I wish, you know, that was the case in other movies, because it's nice to see that. It was a nice relationship, and it made the characters really likeable. There's obviously a wonderful score in this, so 80s, and the way this movie depicts an 80s summer, I want to have an 80s summer more than ever now. More than ever. It just makes the 80s seem so unbelievable and so wonderful to go back to. I know it's probably just nostalgia, but it just on screen, seeing that American 80s, I'm a sucker for it. A sucker for that American 80s summer and the beaches and the cars and the clothes and this and that. I just want to go back there just once. Obviously, Pat Morita debuts as Miss Miyagi. Miss Miyagi is so humble, so kind, so pure of heart, so intelligent, with wonderful pearls of wisdom throughout this movie, you know, not just balancing karate, balancing life, and everything will fall into place. He's just got so many little lines in this, which just rip your heart out in such a nice way. You know, he's got such a life knowledge, and Pat Morita delivers it. I guarantee Pat Morita was very much like Miyagi in real life, because he's so genuine with the way he delivers it, the speeches, and the way he just cares for Daniel, the way he looks at Daniel, the way he teaches Daniel. He just, an aura of zen about Mr. Miyagi, and you can learn so much from Miyagi's quotes. Obviously, we eventually get that iconic, amazing scene where Daniel goes into a tournament and competes, and you get that song, "You're the best around, nothing's gonna ever keep you down." I won't sing it again, but you know, you can't see anything more 80s than that. You know, it almost reminds me of the Rocky. Well, it's very much a children's version of the Rocky series, isn't it? And it gives you that familiar feeling, and not many movies do that today. I think back here, we could still be swept up in that spell, whereas today, if this sort of stuff comes out, we kind of view it as cheesy, and that's a shame, because I love being wrapped up in movies like this. I love it, I welcome it. This movie is uplifting, it's effective, it's well written, wonderful on-screen chemistry between Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita. I love it. All the actors do great, brilliant pace. It's just an iconic, just standing alone 80s movie, The Karate Kid. What do you guys think of the Karate Kid series? What is your favourite Karate Kid movie? Let me know your ranking in the comments below. Which of these sequels have you seen? Which is your favourite sequel? All that, let's just discuss it all. What's your favourite Miyagi quote? Everything. Discuss it all. What's your favourite Ralph Macchio cool as fuck moment? Thanks for watching, everyone. Please check out my other ranking videos, and also please subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed, as I said, and we can discuss and reminisce on nostalgic movies together. I will see you guys next time.